Study Section 7, Exchange Rate and Balance of Payments, the Absorption Approach. Introduction. In an earlier chapter, we discussed elasticity approach and showed that exchange rate policy affects current account balance through price and volume effect. Attention was paid to how export and import current account respond to changes in exchange rate. However, the approach was silent about the likely effect of exchange rate policy on national income, which current account is a component of. It must be recognized that when a country devalues its currency, both export and import will change, and the demand pattern appears to dictate which one exceeds the other and which effect prevails. But among what drives demand pattern is income. It follows that the spending behavior of the economic agent must not be ignored when analyzing the effect of exchange rate changes on current account. This is not captured in the elasticity approach. The absorption approach takes into consideration the spending patterns of the economic agents. Introduction. The approach was based on the premise that both export and import are components of spending, and therefore the current account will be in a state of disequilibrium if domestic output is necessarily less than domestic absorption, or if income is less than expenditure or demand. Thus, when exchange rate is devalued, we should pay attention to how economic agents adjust their spending on one side and how producers adjust production on the other side. If consumer spending demand the value of domestic output, then there is tendency for current account to deteriorate following exchange rate devaluation. Objectives. At the end of this chapter, you must be able to do the following: master some macroeconomic identities, identify domestic absorption and domestic production, recognize the important elements to consider when examining the effect of devaluation on current account balance, understand the effect of devaluation on national income and direct absorption. The model of absorption approach. The elasticity approach assumes that all other macroeconomic variables are held constant such that it is only export and import spending patterns that dictate the eventual effect of devaluation on current account. However, if export and import change, national income will be affected. Recall that the national income identity is clearly any change in either export or import will lead to a change in national income. Alexander J. 1952 was the first economist to examine this effect. According to him, differences in domestic spending, or what he called domestic absorption and domestic output, is responsible for current account disequilibrium. He collapsed total spending into two, which are domestic spending or absorption and external spending. From there, he showed that current account takes account of differences between domestic output and domestic absorption. From equation 7.1, the domestic absorption is C plus I plus G. Supposing this is represented by B, then we can write equation 7.1 as follows. Since X minus M is the current account balance CA, then this equation says that current account balance is the difference between income, output and domestic absorption. To experience current account surplus, domestic income is greater than domestic absorption, otherwise it will lead to current account deficit. Thus, if there is any change in domestic absorption and or in income, current account will also change. The mathematical symbol of these changes is given by equation 7.4. This equation says that a change in current account, perhaps due to a change in exchange rate, is informed by changes in absorption or changes in output. That is, the effect of devaluation on the current account strictly depends on how it affects national income relative to domestic absorption. If devaluation increases, domestic absorption relative to domestic income or output current account will deteriorate and vice versa. This implies that the basis for absorption approach to balance of payments is to examine how devaluation affects both domestic income and domestic spending. Following Keynesian consumption model, absorption can be classified into two parts: direct absorption, and induced or indirect absorption. The direct absorption is the increase in spending when there is devaluation but independent of income. This is also called autonomous absorption. The indirect absorption comes through income. When devaluation occurs, income increases and part of the increase is spent on consumption. Thus, the share of increase in absorption due to increase in income is called marginal propensity to absorb, MPA. If we represent the share of the autonomous aspect of absorption with beta and the share of induced absorption as A, then a change in total absorption brought about by a change in direct and indirect absorption is given by substituting this into 7.4. We have the equation says that when considering the impact of devaluation, we must pay attention to three important elements: the marginal propensity to absorb, A, change in the level of income, the Y, and a change in direct absorption, the B. It follows that for a devaluation to improve current account, the following condition must hold. That is, any change not spent on induced or indirect absorption must exceed any change in direct absorption. This condition implies us that it is important to know when devaluation should take place. For instance, when the economy is at full employment, devaluation will increase direct absorption because the increase will not lead to increase in income, and this will violate the above condition, in which case the current account will slump to deficit. On the other hand, when the economy is operating below full employment, any positive exchange rate shock will lead to increase in income, and this will increase indirect absorption, and the above condition will hold. Effect of devaluation on national income. We have just established the fact that when an economy is operating below full employment capacity, any positive shock will lead to increase in income. Recall that marginal propensity to absorb, MPA, measures increase in total absorption due to increase in income. Thus, if something is done so that income increases, then absorption will also increase. If income falls, then income absorption ratio to direct absorption will also fall, and consequently worsens current account. When income changes, it will generate two effects. These are employment effect and terms of trade effect. Employment effect. Suppose the economy is operating below full employment, and assuming that Marshall-Lerner condition holds, when currency is devalued, the price elasticity of both export, GX, and price elasticity of import, GM, will rise, but GX will rise faster than GM, and consequently leads to increase in income through foreign trade multiplier. If the ML condition does not hold, then GM will rise faster than GX, so that income falls. This means that we do not know the clear effect of devaluation on national income through employment. There is resource reallocation effect, since resource will be reallocated to the production of export when there is devaluation. This follows the fact that devaluation makes export cheaper and raises export demand. Increased export demand, which fosters production of more export, also boosts employment. Terms of trade effect. Terms of trade is defined as the price of export divided by price of import. That is, where P is domestic price level, P's asterisk is foreign price level. In our own case, our exchange rate is measured as Naira per dollar. A devaluation of exchange rate when R increases implies that import becomes expensive and export becomes cheaper. This also implies that import price is higher than export price, and so terms of trade deteriorate. Deterioration of terms of trade is a loss of real national income because it amounts to erosion of the purchasing power in the world market. Thus, the effect of devaluation on national income of the devaluing country is unclear. This is because even if export demand increases and employment effect is positive, the terms of trade effect is negative, and the overall effect, net effect, depends on which one outweighs the other. Effect of devaluation on direct absorptions. Supposing the net effect of devaluation on income is zero, that is, devaluation does not affect income. In this case, we need to consider the effect of devaluation on direct absorption. If devaluation reduces direct absorption, then it will improve current account. But if direct absorption at the aftermath of devaluation increases, then current account will deteriorate. The literature highlighted 5 ways through which devaluation affects direct absorption. These are real balance effect, income redistribution effect, money illusion effect, Lonsen-Metzler effect, and expectational effect. Real balance effect. The real balance effect comes into play when economic agents intend to maintain a certain level of real money balances following devaluation. The maintenance of real money balance is effective in reducing direct absorption if the authorities did not accommodate increase in money demand due to devaluation by increasing money supplied equivalent to the amount demanded. If they do so, then current account will be unaffected. A simple money demand function is given by where M is money demand, P1 is price index, and L is constant. The price index can be collapsed into the one associated with domestic transaction and the one associated with imports, where P, PX series and R are as defined earlier, and pi measures the percentage change of expenditure on domestic goods, while 1 minus pi measures the percentage change in import. Suppose the price of domestic good is 100 naira and the price of foreign good is $10. If the exchange rate is 120 per dollar and the consumer spends 70% of their income on domestic goods while 30% is spent on foreign good, the average price level others are rich. Those that are poor have large propensity to consume compared to those that are rich whose propensity to consume is low. It follows that those that are poor will experience low real income and hence be hurt with devaluation. The rest that are rich will be unaffected or better off because they have low marginal propensity to absorb. Therefore, if income are redistributed from those that are poor to those that are rich, the income distribution will reduce direct absorption and hence improves current account. Therefore, if income are redistributed from those that are poor to those that are rich, the income distribution will reduce direct absorption and hence improves current account. Another income distribution effect is the structure of earnings in the devaluing country. Note that devaluation tends to increase sales in exporting and import competing sector, thereby increasing the profit income of the company. However, workers will suffer from reduction in real wages due to increase in price level. Now, suppose firms have lower tendency to absorb than workers, current account will improve. However, having lower tendency to absorb is contingent on how the firms view the future. If they expect brighter future, then devaluation and hence increase. If they expect brighter future, then devaluation and hence increase in profit may call for more investment, and this will increase direct absorption with eventual worsening of the current account. If, however, the future is expected to be bad, then more profit may not lead to increase in investment. What will happen to profit? And this will cut direct absorption so that current account will improve. Also, when considering the income effect, we need to examine sources of production and the influence of workers' union. Devaluation increases export sales but also makes import expensive. Thus, some firms whose major source of production is import dependent will experience low profits following devaluation. In the same vein, increase in general price level may likely have a mild, if any, impact on real income if workers are represented by strong and honest trade unions who can bargain for increase in salary. If workers are represented by weak trade union, or if the representatives are not honest, or if they do not have union at all, they will face the negative effect of increase in price level. Thus, the overall effect on direct absorption will depend on whether the companies and workers that gain have a higher propensity to absorb than those who lose. If they are, current account will improve. Following this analysis, it means that we cannot say a priori whether income redistribution effect will raise or reduce direct absorption. Money illusion effect. When a person is concerned about the amount of money he has without considering what the money can buy, purchasing power, or when a person is offered more and more money without recognizing the value of that money in the market, we say the person is suffering from money illusion. Relating this to our discussion, when devaluation increases price level, consumers may tend to maintain their levels of consumption even though their real income has fallen. When this happens, they are increasing on direct absorption, which can worsen the current account balance. However, if the consumers perceive increase in price level has a reduction in their real money and they intend to keep more money, they will reduce their spending by cutting back direct absorption, and this can improve current account balance. We only need to know that the money illusion effect is a tentative effect, not a permanent effect. Lozenmetzler effect. This tells us that if devaluation leads to current account deterioration, it will generate two additional effects, income and substitution effect. According to the proponent, current account deterioration implies deteriorating terms of trade. Lower terms of trade leads to lower income and hence lower income related absorption. Again, the terms of trade deterioration also leads to cheaper domestically produced goods. The substitution effect. Cheap domestic goods will raise direct absorption, thus if the positive substitution effect outweighs the negative income effect, in which case the domestically produced goods and normal goods deterioration of terms of trade could lead to net increase in absorption and hence deteriorate current account balance. If price effect dominates, current account will improve overall. The effect of devaluation on direct absorption appears to be ambiguous. Out of the 5 factors examined, only real money balance effect tends to effectively lower direct absorption, and this is also contingent on the fact that the monetary authorities do not intervene. For others, it is unclear, particularly since we do not have information about the nature of marginal propensity to absorb, whether it is greater or not. In any case, the absorption approach has some important lessons for policymakers. The central message of the approach is that raising domestic income relative to domestic absorption appears to improve current account balance. In this case, devaluation will effectively improve current account balance if it is followed by output and employment expansion and checking ostentatious spending. A synthesis of the elasticity and absorption approach. The elasticities approach focuses on the price and volume effect, while absorption approach focuses on income and absorption effect of devaluation. At first, it appears the two approaches differ and one can be thought as a substitute for the other. However, researchers like Xiang 1961, Alexander 1951, and Pelbian 1992 argue that the two are actually complementary. According to them, if exchange rate is devalued, the effect on income must be caused by the fact that export rises faster than import so that income increases, and this will be possible if the Marshall-Lerner elasticities condition hold. If the ML condition is not fulfilled, export will rise but less than decrease in import, and this will reduce income. Thus, the ML condition is unambiguously relevant to the absorption approach. When we consider the income effect, the elasticity condition for a devaluation to improve the current account balance is unaffected. If the sum of elasticities is greater than unity so that current account improves, the improvement will lead to increase in income, which then leads to increase in import consumption more than the initial import consumption, that is, before income is affected by devaluation. Thus, the initial improvement in the current account balance needs to be more pronounced than in the absence of such income effect. Study section summary. Devaluation is associated with changes in income, and thus it is important to understand how this association works out to either improve or worsen current account. Aggregate income output can be collapsed into domestic consumption and net foreign consumption. Current account is the difference between national income and domestic absorption. Hence, a change in current account is brought about by a change in income or a change in domestic absorption. Domestic absorption can be collapsed into two: direct absorption, that which is independent of income, and direct absorption, that which is associated with changes in income. Devaluation will improve current account if any change not spent on absorption is more than any change spent on direct absorption. Whether this condition holds or not depends on whether the economy operates at full capacity or below capacity. The effect of devaluation on national income depends on employment and terms of trade effect. If the economy is operating below capacity, devaluation will improve current account provided ML condition holds. Devaluation will worsen terms of trade because it implies that import is less expensive even though export is cheaper, and this makes price of export to fall and price of imports to rise. There are 5 effects of devaluation on direct absorption. Out of these 5, only real balanced effect has an unambiguous decrease effect on direct absorption, with the absorption that the authorities will maintain status quo even after devaluation. Other factors give ambiguous results at first glance. One will be tempted to believe that elasticity approach and absorption approach are substitutes. However, an in-depth analysis shows that the two are complementary. The price effect of elasticity approach will have recourse to consumption-absorption behavior, while the income effect of the absorption approach cannot do without the ML condition derived from elasticity approach. This is the end of study section 7. Thanks for listening.